Once again, we find ourselves in a period where the gacha space feels like it's experiencing some of the biggest hype it has ever seen. I mean, Genshin Impact is going all out with all the trailers it's putting out for Shinesnaya. We're seeing characters, the region itself, even getting our first real look at the Sarita, which, depending on where you stand on her design, she looks pretty cool. On the other hand, Wuthering Waves is preparing to release Mengju, and oh my god, the hype surrounding this region is absolutely insane. I mean, whether it's because of the characters, the world itself, or my personal favorite reason, the fact that the rover is once again receiving an insane upgrade to their abilities and combat kits. There is just so much excitement surrounding what is coming out next. But this goes beyond just Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves. I mean, looking at the unreleased side of the genre, we have games like Silver Palace throwing their hat into the ring, dropping trailer after trailer while preparing for its upcoming beta test. And really, it is in the idea of other gachas that this video is really focused on. I mean, whether you like it or not, the hype surrounding Wuthering Waves right now is completely deserved. Because more than anything, this is a game that has continually proven that it can revolutionize what people expect from gacha. This is a game that took the genre from what it once was to a place that very few people thought it could ever reach. A place where the conversation isn't just about gambling mechanics anymore, but about world building, storytelling, exploration, music, genuine game design. And because of that success, we have seen new gacha games either release or get announced. I mean, games like Duet Night Abyss, Arknights, Endfield, Neverness to Everness, Rewinding Cadence, Silver Palace, the list just keeps growing. So with everything we know right now, there is one important question we have to ask. I mean, with all these games, all these massive fan bases, all these resources being poured into this genre, why haven't we seen another major revolution in gacha? Why does it still feel like Wuthering Waves remains the biggest catalyst for change? And even more importantly, looking at the games that are still on the horizon, Rewinding Cadence, Silver Palace, games like those, which one has the greatest chance of pushing the genre forward once again and delivering the next evolution of gacha that so many of us in the gacha space have been waiting to see? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. So if you're into this kind of content, make sure to leave a like and let me know your thoughts on the current state of gacha. Do you believe we're at a point where newer gacha games simply are not capable of causing the next major shift? Or do you think there's another reason entirely why we haven't really seen another evolution in the genre since Wuthering Waves? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, and of course don't forget to subscribe if you should on any of my future videos. Alright, let's get into it. See, some of my favorite topics to talk about are the ones surrounding newer gacha games, because more than anything, there is one thing these games will always possess that the Genshins, the Wuwas, the Honkai Star Rail simply never will again, and that is potential. I mean, with the release of any new gacha game, we as players expect everything. We expect to be blown away by what these games have to offer, especially after months, even sometimes years of trailers, teasers, and the general marketing building up to that excitement. I mean, that is both the greatest advantage and even more so, the greatest disadvantage that every new gacha game has at launch. And it's a really interesting thing to understand, because when you look at the games that have released over the past couple of years, what we've consistently seen are games that have absolutely benefited from that initial advantage. But in an even bigger way, they have also fallen victim to the disadvantage that comes with it. I mean, take Arknights Endfield for example. When it was first released, it was the game everyone was talking about. A game being hailed as the next big thing for gacha. I mean, whether you were an Arknights player or not, everyone was paying attention. The conversation surrounding this game was absolutely massive. But fast forward just a few months, and what we've seen has almost been a complete 180 from that initial excitement. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is still discussion around the game. There are still plenty of people who love it. But right now more than ever, it is impossible not to notice just how much that conversation has slowed down. How part of that excitement has completely transformed. I mean, these days, you see criticism and negativity directed towards many of the same aspects of Arknights Endfield that people were praising not too long ago. And in many cases, it is coming from the very same people who were once celebrating those features. And really, the same thing can be said for Neverness to Everness. Except there, we started seeing that shift from excitement to neutrality, and even in some cases, outright disappointment, even earlier than we did with Arknights Endfield. So the big question becomes why? I mean, forget revolutionizing gacha. Why are we not seeing these newer gacha games maintain that initial wave of excitement and positivity that almost every major gacha title starts with? Why does it feel like the hype dies off so much faster than it used to? And yes, it will be completely valid to put the blame on the games themselves. The reality that these games just aren't doing enough. Whether we're talking about Arknights Endfield and the complaints surrounding its lack of content, or Neverness to Everness and the criticism directed towards the story. I mean, these are all legitimate reasons why people's opinions have shifted. But while I think those criticisms are absolutely valid, I also think there's a much bigger reason behind all of this. A reason that I believe a lot of people already know but don't really want to admit. And that is the fact that in many ways, the revolution that Wuthering Waves has brought to the genre has also, in a sense, unintentionally damaged it. Or more accurately, it has completely changed the way we, the audience, judge gacha games and what we expect from gacha gacha developers. And I think a content creator who, albeit unknowingly, explained this shift almost perfectly is Neon Infinity. Because a couple of days ago, Neon uploaded a video explaining why he decided to quit both Arknights Endfield and Neverness to Everness, and here is what he had to say.
I'm just going to get into it. The reason why I've quit NTE is because my standards are just so high. I think the gacha system is amazing. I really do. I think the no 50-50 is just so good. I think that the way they do the gacha system with, you know, the little playing board, I think the weapon banner is actually not too bad. I actually think that the character designs look really good. I think the story's alright. I haven't played 1.1 and that's the problem. That is the problem right there. This is why I'm quitting. Because at the time of recording this video, it's been about like 1.5, 2 weeks since 1.1's come out, and I have had zero excitement to play the story. And for me personally, like for you guys, it might be different, right? You might just want to, you know, stay along with the game and just see how it goes. But for me personally, I'm just not excited by the story, and for me, if I'm not excited, then, you know...
And I find this perspective really interesting, because see, while Neon specifically points to the story as the reason he is falling out of love with a lot of these newer gacha games, I actually think there is a broader way of describing what he is talking about. And that is quality. And not just the story quality, but the overall standard people now expect from a gacha game. I mean, the bar for what people consider enjoyable has risen dramatically. And unfortunately for a lot of these newer releases, Wuthering Waves might be the biggest reason why. I mean, this is a game that didn't just raise expectations for combat or graphics, it raised expectations for almost everything: storytelling, world building, presentation, music, character interactions, quality of life features, post-launch supports, the entire package. And as a result, games that would have been considered genuinely impressive just a few years ago are now being judged against a completely different standard. And I think the proof of this isn't really found in the games themselves, but rather our willingness to wait. I mean, ask yourself this: why were so many of us willing to wait weeks, even months, for Wuthering Waves to get better? And even more so, why are we seemingly unwilling to extend that same patience to games like Neverness to Everness or Arknights Endfield? I mean, previously I had always attributed that patience to Wuthering Waves itself, the improvements we saw over time, the way crew continually listened to player feedback, everything that came with that. I mean, you've heard this argument 1,000 times before, but I actually think there is a much bigger reason. See, I think the main reason so many people waited for Wuthering Waves, other than what Crow was doing for the game, was really because at the time, the games that already existed simply weren't meeting the standard we actually wanted from this genre. I mean, we can and we always do talk about Horrorverse's relationship with this player base, the idea that the developers don't really listen or don't really care to the extent people would like. But let's put the developers aside for a second and look purely at Genshin Impact as a video game, and really ask yourself, before the release of Wuthering Waves, did Genshin Impact, strictly as a video game, consistently give you more than the bare minimum when it came to presentation and storytelling? I mean, when you look at the Wuthering Waves story today, independent of lore reviews, independent of overarching narrative, strictly judging each story as an individual experience, it is very easy to compare them to the experiences you would get from full AAA titles. That is how good they have become. Whether it's the emotional impact of the story, the character expression, the cinematography, the camera work, the subtext, all the little details that elevate simple quests into something genuinely memorable, those are qualities Wuthering Waves consistently strive for. And the more important thing is, these aren't just nice bonuses anymore, they have become expectations. They have become something we naturally expect with each passing version, and something whose absence turns the entire story into a flat-out disappointment. So once again, ask yourself this: before Wuthering Waves, could we have even imagined expecting this level of presentation from a gacha game? I mean, we had Genshin making billions of dollars every single year, yet what we came to understand is that there were still aspects of its storytelling and presentation that many people considered merely acceptable. In fact, it became so common that people would rate Genshin's story in two completely different ways. There was the gacha game rating, where the story would score incredibly high, and then there was the video game rating, where the exact same story would score noticeably lower. And really, that was simply how we viewed the gacha genre before Wuthering Waves. So yes, when Wuthering Waves launched with all of its issues, it made sense that many of us were willing to wait. More so because despite the rough launch, the quality that we experienced at the time wasn't really that different from what we associated with high-end gacha games. And this, more than any reason, is why I say Wuthering Waves has caused almost irreversible damage to the genre. Because what games like Neverness to Everness are giving us now is in many ways the old standard, the Horrorverse standard, a level of quality that a few years ago would have been considered more than enough. But the problem is that is no longer enough. And while even Arknights Endfield deserves credits because, at least in terms of presentation, it clearly pushes beyond that old standard, it still falls back into it when it comes to the storytelling itself.
If we take a look at 1.2 and how we had the big story fight in the Wuling City. That one was cool. The Fang Yi storyline was one of the greatest that I've ever seen. It was a great visual experience. They have a lot of cool little elements that they decided to play involved, and I think those are great. But the thing that they didn't do a good job was what happens after you've done that main story, because the side events that you had to do wasn't great at all, right? You had the cleaning event, you had the event where you had to feed some food, you still had survival training where you just throw random bombs at enemies, and then later on you wait a whole bunch of weeks to get into this area called the test area, which is a beautiful map for you to witness. But the problem with the test area is that it's not very enticing of a storyline. It feels pretty kiddish for me to follow around some floaty items, to go place to place, to see a pillar. Instead of it feeling like a story, it feels like I've just gone to just a...
Okay, so now we have just one question left. What game can we realistically expect to not simply go beyond the bare minimum, but to truly revolutionize gacha? I mean, that is the entire point of this video. What game can we expect to get so many things right, and get them right so early that we begin looking at it as the next major leap for the genre? Because really, this mystery game has its work cut out for it. I mean, we're looking for a gacha game that, despite being a gacha, delivers the quality and experience of a full-fledged video game. We're looking for a game that takes itself seriously, a game where the voice direction, the cinematography, and the overall presentation all communicates one thing, that the developers believe in the story they're trying to tell. Because if this game wants us to take its narrative seriously, then every aspect of its presentation should reflect that. But at the same time, as talked about earlier, it is also important to understand that newer games no longer have the luxury that Wuthering Waves had. They don't have months to convince players that they will eventually get better. They have to get it right from day one. And out of every game we've seen, whether it's already been released or still on the horizon, I think there is one title that currently checks almost every single one of those boxes: Silver Palace. And really, the history of this game has actually been really fascinating, because see, when Silver Palace first appeared, it almost felt like the second coming of gacha. I mean, it showed us a side to the genre that, quite honestly, many of us never expected to see. And yes, a lot of that first impression came from the visuals, the art direction, the character designs, the protagonist, and perhaps the biggest visual surprise of them all, the horse. I mean, this means of traversal immediately became one of the game's defining features. But more than anything, what made Silver Palace stand out wasn't simply that it looked beautiful. No, it was because Silver Palace, more than most other gachas, showed us that it has the capacity to wow us immediately. I mean, one thing that immediately stands out about Silver Palace, especially when you go back and watch the reactions for the first beta test, is that almost every content creator who played the game had only one thing to say about its story.
Aesthetic. The characters are stunning. The character body types are incredible. The NPC design is very diverse. They're actually more detailed than a lot of games I've seen. It features a very realistic graphical style. It has very Victorian era-esque inspired artwork. Seeing the city brought to life in a way that I've never seen, in a style of game that I've never...
We watched Rewinding Cadence. We obviously currently play Genshin, Wuwa, and many other gacha games, but there is one specific gacha game that I am looking forward to the most out of anything that I have seen. Silver Palace. This game looks like it is doing so many things correct.
I'm gonna be honest. This is one of the highest production value fights I think I've ever seen. The vibes are immaculate. This just looks fun.
Now, if you haven't heard me shilling this game before, you'll be hearing me shilling this game more often. Why? Because Silver Palace is the only game in the gacha space to ever actually impress me with its story in 1.0. Every other gacha game that I've played has had a dog water story in 1.0, except this game. And the craziest thing about it is it was just the beta. The game hasn't even launched yet. It had peak voice acting. It had good pacing, good quality, good visuals. I mean, the people were talking to each other as if they were in the same room and not as if they were recording voice lines. I am putting all my faith into this game to make real ripples in this space, not because of the combat that everybody had critiques for, but because the story was something worth paying attention to in one point.
Now, it's very easy to dismiss all of this by saying, well, they're being sponsored, so of course they're going to speak positively about the game. And yes, while that's a fair point to bring up, I personally don't think that is what is happening here. Partly because of what we've already seen from the game itself, from the trailers, the cinematics, the overall presentation that Silver Palace has consistently pushed forward. I mean, just a couple of days ago, we talked about the importance of voice direction in the gacha game, and how much the game's presentation influences whether players take it seriously or not. And we use Wuthering Waves as the perfect example of this. I mean, despite all the larger-than-life battles, the massive explosions. Some of the most memorable moments in Wuthering Waves are not the fights, they are the conversations. The way the conversations are delivered, the emotion in the performance, all the things that make dialogue feel real and leave a lasting impression on you as the player. And really, we can already see Silver Palace aiming at this same level of seriousness. I mean, the voice work we've heard so far gives off the impression that this is a game that genuinely believes in the story it is trying to tell. A game that wants its emotional moments to actually land. And even beyond that, we've also seen how these very same content creators react when a game under-delivers. I mean, they don't start calling this the best opening story that they have ever experienced in Gacha, like what Gacha Smack did. They don't compare it to the biggest names in the entire genre, like what Doro 44 did. No. I mean, sure, they still remain positive, but even within that positivity, you can usually tell when a game didn't truly impress them. There's always this underlying feeling that, yeah, it is good, but it is just about what you would expect. But with Silver Palace, there's always been a different level of confidence, a different level of excitement. I mean, don't get me wrong, even after everything I've said, Silver Palace is still a game that has been affected by the Wuthering Waves effect. A game that we understand that although it received so much praise in its initial trailers, many of the trailers that followed were met with far more criticism, whether it was the combats, the UI, or simply how the game felt to play. There was definitely a lot more criticism directed towards it. But as I've already argued, I think a large part of that comes from the standard that Wuthering Waves has already established for the genre. But even with all that criticism, one thing has become very clear. This is a game that has shown a tremendous amount of growth. And if by the time it releases, and even after that, the developers continue to improve the game and keep building on the foundation they've already established, then as I said earlier, I genuinely believe we could be looking at a game capable of pushing the entire gacha genre forward once again. But that is just my opinion. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the Wuthering Waves effects in today's gacha space? Do you believe Silver Palace will be the exception, the game that finally breaks this trend and truly wows players once again? Or do you think the genre is heading in a completely different direction? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, I'll catch you on the next one.